Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Gresh. I'm an adjunct professor of communication at the College of Professional Studies at Northeastern University, and I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about the course you've just begun, Introduction to Organizational Communication. And I simply want to make 3 points. 2 points about writing, and the third point about the peer review, which you'll be involved in week 2 of the course. First, writing. I think that if you want to be successful here and elsewhere when you write, whether you're writing for a corporation or you're writing for a course, you should write as if you're speaking to someone. And I'll give you a story to support that. One of my students who's speaking, he's taking this course, this program here at the Northeastern University in his second language, and he was struggling in some of the essays that he had to present to me for his course. So he was really frustrated. So I sat down with him after class one day, and I said, let's take a look at this page that you've written. And it's very awkward, doesn't sound good. You would not get a high grade if you turn this in. And so he looked at it, and I said, now I want you to read it again. And he quietly read the page that we were using as an example. And then I said, okay, turn the page over, and I want you to tell me what you were trying to say in that passage. And he proceeded to explain to me a very difficult concept very clearly. And at the end of it, I said, okay, if you had written that passage as if you were talking to me, it would get an A, simply an A. It was just a very, very good, clear explanation. But there's a disconnect that he was experiencing. It's a disconnect many, many people experience because they almost become like another person when they're writing something down. So my suggestion to you is that I would suggest that you record, audio record what you're writing, listen to it, look for ways that it could change, and then write as if you're explaining it to someone. And I suggest very strongly that you write shorter sentences, and that everything that you present to us, essays to me and to Professor Anderson, that you have read it out loud, you've recorded it, audio recorded, and listened to it, because your writing will improve dramatically if you take that approach. So that's the first point that I'd like to make about writing, and I think you'll do very, very well if you follow that principle. The second point I want to make is that when you're writing, you've got to write on the basis of what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, etc. And I want to give you a story, tell you a story, an excerpt from a book, a great American book, American novel called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Pirsig. It is a great book. It's a cult book. People from, you'll talk to millions of people who have read this book. The character, the narrative of the narrator is talking about his experience as a professor, and he's talking about teaching at the university. The character's teaching at the University of Montana and Mazuma, Montana, and he's talking about an introductory course to writing that he's teaching to freshmen. And there's a student in his class that was having a very, very difficult time writing, and she wanted to do a 500-word essay on the United States. Well, that's sort of impossible, and a lot of young writers want to do something big like that, take a big topic, but you couldn't think of anything. So when the assignment was due, she got very, very upset, and he kind of very prejudiced toward her. He thought she was a very dull, was very serious, hardworking, but she was very dull, and not a spark of creativity in her. And she didn't know what to do, so she was stumped. So he couldn't think of anything to say, and so he had a peculiar thought. He said, well, if you can't write about Bozeman or about the United States, write about the city, but write about something specific. So he said to her, narrow it down, your topic down to the main street of Bozeman, Montana. It was a stroke of insight. She nodded dutifully, and I'm reading from the text now, and she went out. But just before her next class, she came back in real distress. Tears this time. Distress that obviously had been there for a long time. She still couldn't think of anything to say and couldn't understand why. If she couldn't think of anything to say of all Bozeman, she should be able to think of something about just one street. But she was stuck. He was furious. He says, you're just not looking. A memory came back of his own dismissal from the university for having too much to say. For every fact there is an infinity of hypotheses, he thought. The more you look, the more you see. She really wasn't looking, and yet somehow didn't understand this. He told her angrily, narrow it down to the front of one building in Main Street, the Opera House. Start with the upper left-hand brick. Her eyes behind the thick lenses opened wide. She came in the next class with a puzzled look and handed him a 5,000-word essay on the front of the Opera House on Main Street in Bozeman, Montana. I sat in the hamburger stand across the street, she said, and started writing about the first brick, and then the second brick, and then by the third brick, it started to come and I couldn't stop. They thought I was crazy, and they kept kidding me, but here it all is. I don't understand it. He didn't understand it either, but on long walks, he stopped to think about it. He said she was blocked because she was trying to repeat in her writing things she had already heard. Just as on the first day of his teaching, he had tried to repeat things he had already decided to say. She couldn't think of anything to write about Bozeman because she couldn't recall anything she had heard worth repeating. She was strangely unaware that she could look and see freshly for herself as she wrote, without primary regard for what had been said before. The narrowing down to one brick destroyed the blockage because it was so obvious. She had to do some original and direct seeing. So what the professor did is he started having students sit down and he started having them write about looking at their thumb, and then he gave them coins, or write about coins. And once he got into this, it was a confidence-building assignment because what they wrote, his students wrote, even though seemingly trivial, was nevertheless their own thing, not a mimicking of someone else's. Classes where he used that coin exercise were also less bulky and more interesting. Now, my point to you is you're going to be reading so much material here. You're going to be reading about organizational communication, looking at it from every perspective, looking at various theories, looking at case studies, etc. You're going to be looking in some of the other courses at case studies of very important stories about communication and organizations. But what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking and reflecting on your own experience. As I've mentioned to many of my students, and especially when I have the opportunity to sit down with you or by phone talk to you for half an hour, I learn about the experience that you guys have. Some of you have not worked officially in a job, but you've done internships, or you've gone through universities and you've seen how organizations work, you've seen how people communicate, etc. So what I want you to do is take a look, very carefully read everything that we're asking you to read, and then I want you to take some of those ideas and see if you can make them your own by your own observations. But I want you to start thinking, and I want you to start writing as if you're talking and explaining things to other people. And I want you to try to get out of the habit, if you have the habit, of regurgitating back what you hear professors tell you. And I also want you to start writing and rewriting, by the way. Rewriting is one of the most important things. You should write, when you write your first drafts, I want you to write them quickly as possible. I don't care about I don't think you should care about the spelling, punctuation, or whatever. Get the ideas down, then go back and rewrite and revise, etc. But I want you to start thinking and saying, is this what I believe? Is this what I've seen? You're writing about, there's one case study that you'll get eventually in the 6100 course where you're writing about a university with a dean and the problems she's having of trying to energize her college and increase the admissions level, to come up with more research projects to get everybody really enthusiastic about the university, etc. But so you've seen that. You've seen how that works. Many of the things we're discussing in communication are things that you see, you observed, and so anyway, I'm rambling a little bit too much here. So I just wanted to make these two original points, not original. One of them is write as if you're speaking to someone, as if you're explaining something to someone. And number two, write about what you're thinking, what you see, your observations, how you've analyzed things, what you think of the strategies behind things that you're observing, and also start thinking and challenging the things that you're reading. Are these theories that you're reading about? Are they realistic? Have you seen them in practice, etc.? So they're the two main points that I wanted to make. And the third point I want to make is that I've started this week. I've just posted it a couple hours ago on the discussion board, on the discussions in the Blackboard, as for week 2. And what I'm asking you to do is join with 2 others. I've formed 3 groups in the class, 3 groups of 3, and I've asked you by Thursday of this week is to post to your 2 persons in your group your draft of the first essay. And then I want you to read the drafts, each other's drafts, and then I want you to comment on them by Saturday afternoon at noon so that they can make any final changes or whatever, because they're going to be turning them in on Sunday night, I believe, at the end of the first week. Actually, the end of the first week is Saturday, but I believe that the writing folks on the OWL side of it, the online writing lab, they would like you to turn in the assignments at the end of the Sunday each week, or each week that the assignments are due. Anyway, so I think that'll work out well. If you have any questions, give me a call. You have my phone number. Text me, send me a text message. And if you haven't had the half-hour discussion with me, I think there are 2 of you I haven't talked to, please let me know when you're available. I'll make myself available to you. If it's late at night, that's fine. If it's early in the morning, that's fine. But I'll accommodate your schedule, and I'm looking forward to talking to the 2 or 3 persons I haven't spoken to. So again, write as if you're speaking to someone. Write from what you're thinking, you're observing, what you've analyzed, etc. And number 3, be very frank, by the way, in making observations about the essays of your colleagues, your peers. You should do well in these essays. They're about your culture, where you come from, and the kinds of things that you've observed or agree with regard to the analysis that was done on the survey that you did. That's it. I really look forward to having you in my class. I'm excited. I love teaching you. I love teaching at Northeastern University. It's just an honor for me to have students from all over the world who will be the leaders, the next group of leaders coming up in their respective countries. So it's exciting. Again, this is Sean Gresh signing off, and I'll be talking to you soon.